Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, everybody. A little after 7:15 a.m. here on the East Coast. This is an investigation, a case, a tragic turn of events that our Live Now from Fox team has followed since the very beginning, since the incident first happened last week. We had actor Alec Baldwin on a set of the movie Rust that he was filming, rehearsing a scene, pulling the trigger of a gun and killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins, also injuring a director. Now, we heard from authorities a couple of days ago. It was something we brought to you here on Live Now from Fox. They brought us the latest on the investigation when it comes to the evidence that was collected. They said that they were interviewing hundreds of people. I do believe that it was more than 100 people. And we do have new affidavits showing some history regarding the show's director. So will there be repercussions for this incident? Well, we do want to bring on a guest this morning here on Live Now from Fox, Danielle Cohen-Higgins. She is a legal analyst joining us. Good morning, Danielle. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Danielle, right off the bat, I have to ask you, in your profession, when we first learned of this incident that unfolded last week, we heard about the shooting, then we heard about the tragic death of the cinematographer. What was your initial reaction off the bat?
You know, my initial reaction was, how did this happen? How could this have happened, right? Movie sets have policies and procedures, just as any business operating, and safety, especially on a set involving ammunition and guns. Safety protocols are in place to prevent a situation precisely like this from happening. So when this tragedy occurred, the first question that popped into my mind is, how did this happen? Because it absolutely should not have happened, and it absolutely is preventable.
Now, Danielle, we did hear from authorities. We got an initial update after the incident occurred, but the other day we heard from authorities and they announced what had been done in the investigation thus far. So what did they say, and what did you take away from their update?
Yeah, so this is a story that is certainly developing, and daily there seems to be new developing details about this tragic incident that killed Ms. Hutchins. But what seems to be developing is, number one, this is a criminal investigation, right? And it appears as though that the Santa Fe Police Department in New Mexico is investigating a possible involuntary manslaughter case here. And what is entailed in an involuntary manslaughter case? This is an unintentional killing that is the result of criminal or reckless negligence, right? That certainly sounds fitting in the case here of Haley Hutchins, because again, the question that pops into everyone's mind is, how did this young, beautiful cinematographer, a young mother, get killed on the set while she was just simply doing her job? And what are the police investigating? What are they asking hundreds of people about? The number one question that seems to be floating out there that no one has been able to answer is, how did live rounds get on this set? Number two, this armorer. Who is the armorer? What is an armorer? An armorer is somebody whose professional job on the set of movies just like this is to ensure gun safety. Well, who was this armorer? Ms. Gutierrez, Hannah Gutierrez. She was only 24 years old. This was only her second movie. And as the facts develop, it appears that on her previous set, a set with actor Nicolas Cage, there were issues regarding safety with her as well, which is why she lawyered up. And last night, her attorneys put out a statement. And what does that statement say? The statement certainly implicates and points the finger towards the set of the movie Rust, saying, listen, our client wasn't provided with sufficient safety training. This is not her fault. They were cutting corners. And so again, this points back to Alec Baldwin, because Alec Baldwin was not just an actor on this movie, he was a producer. And why is that important? Because he was funding this movie. He was funding the set. He was making decisions about who was hired and at what rate. And if the evidence shows that corners were cut, and this was an independent, low budget film where they could have spent more for more experienced people, could have spent more for more safety implementation and protocols, Alec Baldwin has a lot of problems coming ahead.
Danielle, you made so many great points, and I do want to go off of that, bringing up the fact that we've sufficed so many legal documents since this incident has happened recently. Can you talk about how new affidavits showed that the director, Dave Halls, he basically admitted that he didn't check the gun thoroughly? Am I right?
Yeah, and affidavits like that are very damning, not only in a criminal case, but also in a civil case. And I will predict with tremendous confidence that this case will involve criminal charges as well as a civil lawsuit following. The family of Ms. Hutchins absolutely should retain counsel because negligence absolutely took place here. The fact that someone's life was lost and there are questions floating around saying we have no idea how live ammunition ended up on this set is a huge problem. And you have to keep in mind that this movie Rust was a movie not set in 2021. It was set back in the 1800s. So the weapons that they were using were during that period of time. This particular weapon that went off was not an automatic weapon. It was a manual revolver, a 45. You have to actually crank this weapon back in order for it to go off. So again, the question points to Alec Baldwin. How did this gun go off not once, but twice by a manual pullback? These are very, very serious questions that Alec Baldwin is going to have to answer, and all fingers continue to point straight to him.
Yeah, and Danielle, great point that you mentioned. The gun I had read was an antique gun because just like you said, this movie was more of a historical movie. Now, that gun was one of 600 pieces of evidence that law enforcement said that they recovered. So I want to talk about that for a second. We know that they said that they collected 3 guns, 500 rounds of ammunition, which I don't believe that they specified on whether or not it was live or it was props. We also do know that they recovered the live bullet inside the shoulder of the director that did survive. So how will this evidence all help in this investigation? What could this evidence bring to the table?
Listen, I think it's going to bring a lot of information to those police investigating this and also for the lawyers of the families that were injured. And remember, this is a movie set, right? And we are in a day and age where so much is captured on camera. The evidence that I'm waiting to come forward is, was this videotaped? Did someone have a camera running? Is there additional evidence that we have not seen in this case yet that will only be more damning for Alec Baldwin and whoever else was a producer in this case? So the officers are doing exactly what they're supposed to right now. They're being very tight-lipped. They're saying this is an investigation. We're not ruling out any kind of criminal liability. And in my professional opinion, criminal charges will likely be filed in this case, as well as civil liability being imposed on both Alec Baldwin and the set of that movie.
Yeah, Danielle, just like you mentioned, going off of what you just said. So right now, investigators, it seems that they're focusing on 3 people. You have Alec Baldwin, Dave Halls, and then we actually know that recently the armorer that was factored in, he was described to be inexperienced. What can you say about that and how that will play into this whole investigation?
I think that's going to be a major piece of evidence. And it's not a he, it's actually a she. Her name is Hannah Gutierrez. She's 24 years old. The facts, as I understand it, is this was only her second movie set. And her name is known in the world of Hollywood because her father is a well-known expert, armor and ammunition expert. And so she's just kind of getting started. How is she the lead armorer on a set like this? How is she in charge of hundreds of weapons? And again, as you read about the facts in this case, her recklessness, her potential, her alleged recklessness didn't begin on this movie set, right? There are allegations that Nicolas Cage was very upset on the previous movie set that she worked on and yelled expletives like, listen, you need to give us a heads up, because apparently the protocol on these movie sets are when there are weapons being introduced, you must announce weapons are being introduced. Basically, everybody be placed on caution, right? Which is appropriate because everybody knows in gun safety, right? You have to be exceptionally cautious. And the experts that have looked at this case from a gun safety perspective said that Alec Baldwin breached every rule as it pertains to basic gun safety. And so I don't know what Alec Baldwin's experience is with weaponry and holding guns and caring for guns. If he has extensive experience, that is not going to bode well for Alec Baldwin. The fact that Hannah Gutierrez is only a 24-year-old new professional in this area with prior allegations of recklessness and negligence, not going to bode well for Hannah. But remember, she was an employee, and who employed her? The producers. And who was the producer? Alec Baldwin. So that's why I say fingers keep pointing back to the producers on this movie. And if they were cutting corners, right, which seems to be a trend in Hollywood now, movies are not doing as well as they used to. So they're putting out films, they're cutting corners. And just like any corporation, right, these films have to be held liable for any negligence that they're responsible for. And that certainly seems to be the case here.
And Danielle, when you talk about safety on movie sets and the protocols that have been in place, what can you say about the fact that we did learn just about a day or hours before this incident occurred? We know that a couple of people working on the set did walk off. It's been a very common theme that people in Hollywood have been protesting, is safety on movie sets.
Yeah, and it really gives me chills when I hear about it because, you know, again, if that is true and those allegations come forward to be true, and I read about that as well, that actors and different professionals walked off this set for safety concerns, again, that needs notice to Alec Baldwin and the producers. That means you were aware before this horrible shooting, the loss of this beautiful young mother's life, you were placed on notice that there were concerns regarding safety. Another sign that this was entirely preventable, that is the absolute definition of negligence, right? Did he owe a duty to Ms. Hutchins? Absolutely he did. Did he breach that duty? I would argue, yes, he and the other producers. There are a lot of signs being revealed here, and those signs are evidence in a case like this. And if it continues to go in this direction, if evidence continues to come forward in this light, it's going to be very damning for this movie, those producers, and Alec Baldwin.
And Danielle, we do know that within the last couple of days, it is apparent that Baldwin and producers actually hired a private law firm to conduct their own probe into what happened. Is that common in a situation like this? What would that even do for them?
You know, I think everyone on this set that was even tangentially involved is lawyering up, and for good reason, right? Because the damages in this case, in this situation, are the ultimate damages, right? Somebody lost their life, and so somebody is going to pay both criminally and civilly. And so I'm sure Alec Baldwin is lawyering up. I'm sure the other producers are lawyering up to have their own investigation to counter the narrative of all the evidence that's going on right now. I haven't heard much of it. I'm not sure what those lawyers are doing or what their facts are finding. Or maybe their facts are finding exactly the same facts that we are being shared in the news and in the media. But of course he's going to lawyer up. Of course they're going to conduct their own investigation, because at the end of the day, he has to present a defense. And we look forward to hearing that defense, because of course he's entitled to being able to present his own side of the story. But right now the evidence is mounting against Mr. Baldwin, mounting against the other producers. And this film, I think a lot of people on that set are going to be lawyering up.
Danielle, when it comes to Miss Hutchinson's family, they lost their wife, their mother in this situation. I don't believe we know of any lawsuits filed against anybody by the family right now, but do you expect that to happen, and what type of lawsuits are we looking at?
Yeah, I absolutely expect the family of Ms. Hutchins to, to appropriately hire lawyers, right? Because that is what our justice system provides. Our justice system will never be able to provide those children, her mother, and that husband, his wife. But the justice system will provide the best that we can, which is the best in the world, which is some sort of remedy by way of monetary damages for the horrific loss of her life. And what kind of a lawsuit are they going to file? They're going to file a wrongful death lawsuit. They're going to say, we lost our mother, we lost our life as a result of the criminal negligence or the negligence, recklessness of someone, whether that's Alec Baldwin, the producers, or this set. This is why they carry commercial liability insurance. I hope they had coverage on this set, but there certainly will likely be, I can't say certainly because I can't predict the future, but I would fully expect Ms. Hutchins and her family to file a wrongful death lawsuit in this case, because it seems very clear very early after her passing that she died as the result of negligence.
And last question to you, Danielle. You touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but hypothetically speaking, if Alec Baldwin, if any of these people that they're looking at on set right now are charged, what type of charges are we looking at? I know you mentioned negligent homicide.
Yeah, it looks like this may be a case ripe for involuntary manslaughter, right? And Santa Fe, those detectives and those police officers, it's my understanding that that's precisely what they are currently investigating. And as I mentioned earlier, involuntary manslaughter is exactly as it sounds, right? It's involuntary. I certainly didn't intend to kill Ms. Hutchins. I certainly didn't intend to injure anyone. It was an accident. But being, responsible for an accident doesn't get you off the hook. You don't just get to say, oh, it was an accident and walk home and walk free and go to bed with your family and your children, right? If that accident was by way of recklessness or negligence and it caused someone to lose their life, our law says that you are now criminally responsible. You're not only going to possibly lose dollars from your bank account or from an insurance policy, you are going to lose time in your life by way of being behind bars if found guilty. So I would anticipate if charges are filed in this case against Alec Baldwin or any other producer, it will likely be by way of charges in the realm of involuntary manslaughter.
All right. Well, Danielle Cohen-Higgins, a legal analyst, joining us on Live Now from Fox this morning. We so appreciate you breaking down all of this information for our viewers. Still a very ongoing investigation, and we'll be sure to check in with you if we get any more developments. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.
Take care, you as well. All right, everybody. Again, this is something that we are going to be continuously following here on Live Now from Fox. The most recent update that we got was just a couple of days ago by Santa Fe, New Mexico Sheriff deputies. Again, they announced the evidence that they are looking into, the fact that charges being filed are not off the table, but important to mention, no charges have been filed as of this time. So be sure to stick with our Live Now from Fox team with any developments regarding this ongoing investigation. Some of you are going to see a commercial